In this video, we're going to work with Adobe InDesign. We are going to create a series of postcards that will be for print as well as for the web. I'm going to set up a series of postcards. I'm going to set up 2, 3 that will be for print, and then a couple that will be for digital devices. Let's begin with setting up the ones for print. I come to File, New Document, and I want this to be in inches. Again, this one is for print. I can also click print up above and come through and set the size. Again, I'm going to set it to inches, and I am going to put the width in at 5 and my height in at 7. I do not want to have facing pages. I'm not going to worry so much about the columns and the margins for now. I am going to hit create. I have my first postcard. I've decided to begin with setting this up in the format so the profile will be for portrait. I come to my pages and I'm going to have more than one page. Now, these postcards are all part of a series, so I want them to have some visual continuity. So I will work a little bit with master pages. When I take a closer look at master pages, I can see I have the word A master. I can see that the page that I have also has A with it as well. This means that whatever I add to the master page will be on all the pages. I'm going to start designing. I start with my first image, and I'm going to begin by adding an image. I come to my toolbar, and I'm going to have my image run the entire span of the layout. I come to File, Place. I place my image into my image box. I'm going to do a series of postcards for national parks. I have my first one. Again, I'm going to do my fitting. I do a right click. I come to Object. I come to Fitting, and I'm going to fill my frame proportionally. And I can see that this is running the span of my box. I'm going to choose my font, and I've decided to go with Impact. Impact is a nice thicker font. I want one without a serif, and I want it to be a little bit thicker. And I'm going to begin, and I went to the Grand Canyon's website, and they have a sight beyond words, Grand Canyon National Park. They also have a little phrase that says wonder calls. I'm going to begin and add a text box, and at the bottom I'm going to type in, and I'm going to use all caps, wonder calls. I actually am putting this in the darker area. I'm going to change this color to white. And I can also work with how the spacing of this, again, opening up my character window, I can make this bigger. And if I'd like to, I can come to the tracking and even push the space out to in wonder calls. And as I take a look, I can play around with the color of this, move it more down towards the bottom. If I'd like to, I can also add a line to each side. A line to one side. Again, changing the color of that line, which is actually the stroke. I can also change the stroke coming on in and even do a dotted line if I'd like to, which might be a little bit too much. We can actually make it a little bit bigger as well. Wonder calls. Move this on up. I can edit, copy, edit, paste. And take this second one and line it up over on the other side. And play around with how it is lining up. Now I can see as I look at this too that it's getting lost a little bit. So what I could do is actually at the bottom, take this whole element that I have here, move it on down a little bit more. And then behind it, I could add a shape if I'd like to. So I can come and grab a shape and then increase the contrast. I'm just going to put a color in here just for now, just really any color. And then I'm going to sample this. Now I want to move it behind the type. So I would come Object Arrange, Send Backward. Again, I need to do it a couple times. Object Arrange, Send Backward. One more time, Object Arrange, Send Backward. And you might be wondering, how do you know what to do? Well, you can come to Window and open up the layer, and you'll see that when I'm moving it behind, that this rectangle, I wanted it to be behind the line, behind the line, behind Wonder Calls. Now, what I want to do is this shape. I want to see some of what is happening behind it. So I'm going to lower the opacity just a bit. And now you can see that you really still can see what's going on. And that seems to work. Not sure if I'm sold on these dots, but I'm going to leave that as it is for right now. Now we're going to add a Sight Beyond Words, Grand Canyon National Park. So again, I grab my T for type. I can come on in and I'm going to just add my text and then come in and work with how it is sized. Again, I'm going to work with all caps. We'll start with a Sight Beyond Words. I'm going to leave this as its own text box. And I'm going to add another text box. A lot of times I just like to edit, copy, edit, paste. And now I'm going to change this and put in Grand Canyon National Park. Again, I'm going to work with all caps. Now I want to work with my sizing. Again, I'm going to come on in. I am going to put my color to white. If you're ever, you can always go and select the color, or you can put in the number letter equivalent, and white is 6Fs. Again, I want to make this larger. And whoops, you know what I want to do is I'm going to actually work on making this span the top. So I'm going to make my text box bigger. So it fills this up, bring it on down just a little bit. A Sight Beyond Words. You can see that my type is going to move based on the text box and the size of it. Now, I did work with the tracking in the other one, so I'm going to do the same in here. A Sight Beyond Words, and I'm going to go a little bit larger, and I'm going to leave it right there. Now I want Grand Canyon National Park to have the same styling as A Sight Beyond Words. So I am going to grab my T for type, I'm going to select my font, and now I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, and I am going to click A Sight Beyond Words. And you can see what it's done is it's actually copied the formatting for that type. Now what I'm going to need to do is, I can see that it's running off the page. It's running out of the text box. It doesn't quite fit in. So I'm going to actually lower the tracking. Grand Canyon National. Oh, now I'm going in a little bit too close. I'm actually going to need to make the font a little bit smaller. And I can see I don't have it all selected yet. And you can spend time working with the sizing to make it all work. A Sight Beyond Words, Grand Canyon National Park. One more time, I actually am going to create the same background for this so the white stands out a little bit more. And I'm going to edit, copy, and edit, paste that shape because I'm going to reuse it. And then I am going to size it, change the sizing. Again, I'm going to need to move it be underneath the type. So I'm going to open up the layer so we can see that. So we have the rectangle right here and it needs to be below the type. So I could go object arrange, send backward. I could also drag it. Now it is underneath it. And as I take a closer look, it looks like park is a different size than what I have set for national. I come to park. Park is only 22. So I want to put this up to 24. It's not quite fitting. So I'm going to keep working until this fits. And now it does. Again, working with the sizing, the spacing, whatever it is that you would like to do. Now, I could also play around a little bit with this, with the stroke. So there's enough space, especially in a sight beyond words. And what is the stroke? When you come on up, we can see we have the fill and it's white, so it's hard to see. And below we have a stroke. I'm just going to add in a color. I'm going to pull in one of these purples. There's a lot of the purples in that. Let's click off and see what it looks like. A sight beyond words. Now I'm going to sample some of the colors from my image. And again, I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool and I'm going to choose the color theme and I'm going to click. And I can see I have all these colors. I'm going to add it. And now I might be wondering, where is it? If I come to window and I go to color and I open up swatches and I pull my swatches over, I'll see that that colorful theme, it's a new folder and there are my colors. Again, I can click different places and see what I get, but that pretty much is it. Now I am going to use one of these colors for the stroke. Make this a little bit bigger. Choosing my colors, opening up my colorful theme. I'll go for this blue, see what that looks like. That is definitely going to fade into the blue that I've chosen. And I wonder now if I take this and leave it, now a sight beyond words, I don't even need this color, right? The stroke does what needs to be done. I can select it, and if I'd like to, I can even make the stroke a little bit thicker. But I actually like how it is right now. If I wanted to make it bigger, I could. There's always a bunch of different ways to do the same thing. What I would say to do is let's open up our stroke window, which is a really great window, window stroke. Opening up my stroke window. I'm going to put it up to 2, see what that looks like. Kind of fun. Blending in together like the E and the Y are. And what's great too is I can even go for a little bit less than 2. I could go for like 1.5. See what that looks like. Okay. Now I'm going to add a stroke to Grand National Park just so that will be seen as well. And I am going to again choose the same color that I have for the one above. Again, I pulled that from the colorful theme that I added. I think it was that one. And this one, let me see, what's this stroke set at? The default is 1, and 1 works perfectly for that. Wonderful. I can even play around with the color. There's really a lot of different options that you can do. So we have our first card done. Now let's say I want to add a second card, but I want it to have a different orientation. I'm going to do a whole series. Well, I'm actually going to create a master, another master. This one, my A master, is going to be set up for portrait. I'm going to set up my B master for landscape. How do I go about doing that? I come to my pages. I'm going to click this icon to the upper right with the lines, and I'm going to say add a new master, and I get this option. I want it to be 5x7. I could flip those, right? And I could put 7x5, or I could just click the landscape and hit OK. And now I have a bee master. My second page is going to be based on a bee. I'm going to double click, make sure I'm in the bee, and I am going to do the same for my next design. Again, I'm going to begin with a rectangle tool. I'm going to lay my image out into this image box. The image box has the X through it. Again, I come to Object Fitting. Forgive me, I come to File Place. Object Fitting is after I place the image in. I come to File Place. Again, I'm going to find my next image that I want to work with. And for this one, I'm going to do the painted desert. I come to Object Fitting. I could also do a right click or a control click and get this window as well. I'm going to fill frame proportionally. Now there's other things that you could choose too. You could go Object Fitting. You could, fit content to frame, fit content proportionally, center content. There's a lot of different options and you can play around with those and see what works best. Now I'm going to begin to add my type, and I want to actually really work in a very similar way. But before I do that, I'm going to begin and I'm going to sample the colors from the image for the painted desert. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper one more time, my colorful color theme tool, and I'm going to click. And I'm going to add these colors to my swatches. And I'm going to actually use some of the same things. So I'm going to use Wonder Calls again. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to edit, copy that. And I am going to go to my next page. I'm going to double click into page 2. I'm going to edit, paste. I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. Now what I'm doing here is creating a sense of visual continuity between my postcards. I'm going to put a shape behind this, and I'm going to use one of the colors from my color theme. I come on over to my shape tool. I add a shape. I'm going to put a color fill in. Again, I send it behind. Now it's very easy to, by accident, have a stroke. I can see I have a stroke turned on this shape. So I want to make sure that I turn that stroke off. And I'm going to move this behind. Object, arrange, send backward. Object, arrange, send backward. You might be wondering, why don't you go send it back? Well, if you do send it back, it goes behind everything. Now it's behind the image. And if that happens, then you would just go Object, Arrange, Bring Forward, and there we have it. Again, I want to lower the opacity of this, just so my font still stands out, but it's not competing with the image that is behind it. I'm going to make my box a little bit bigger here. I'll leave it like that. Now I'm going to type in the painted desert. Working in a similar way as I did with the first card, I have the painted desert right here, and I also have Visit Arizona. Again, I can spend time working with the sizing, and I want to take a look at one more thing that we can do. I pulled the painted desert colors right from the color theme tool. There's another really great option that we can go to, and we come on up to our control panel and we can do an effect, FX, and I can add a drop shadow. I can lower the opacity of my drop shadow. I can also change the XY axis. So I really have a lot of different options here. It's another way to make the color, to make the type stand out and not compete with the background. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to add an effect to the painted desert as well. I'm going to do the drop shadow, and again I'm going to make the opacity just a little bit so it's not so harsh. I'm going to hit OK, and maybe what I want to do is actually change this back to white. So I can come on in and choose white. And I'm going to keep the stroke, see what I think about that stroke from here. Looking for my tools. There we have it, the Painted Desert Visit Arizona. Now let's take a look. These were all for print. We have A, we have B, and we can see that there's a feeling of visual continuity between these two designs. We have the same font, yes, different colors, but there are some elements that are the same. Now let's say that I decided that I was going to take this and make it instead, set it up for a mobile device, for designing for devices. How would I go about doing that? Well, I have it set up already, and I'll just show you. What I began with was File, New Document, and I set up the size to pixels. So we know we're working when we're designing for a device, when we set it up as pixels. I set it up at 800 by 600. Now I'm going to go back to the one that I created just so you can see it and get a sense of what it is that we're working on here. Again, I put the same element, the image, the Painted Desert, Visit Arizona, Wonder Calls, and I have worked with the animation window. So when I come to Window and I come to Interactive, I can see I have all these different windows, and we're really just focusing in on the animation window. And I've chosen each element, the photo to the type, and added fade in. Let's take a look and see what it looks like, and then we'll do another one. We click, and we can see here it is. Okay, let's take a look at how we would go about setting up page 2. I'm going to close our preview, and I'm going to double click page 2. We come into page 2. We can begin with our image. Again, placing our image in, using our image box, moving this around, sizing it how we'd like it to be. Coming to File, Place, you can see that we really do repeat the same steps. File, Place, and I'm going to find that image that I have in my downloads from the Grand Canyon National. Oh, this one's White Sands. Let's do that one. Let's do a different one. So this one is White Sands National Park. So I'm going to work with the fitting, object fitting, fill frame proportionally. That's the one that I'm choosing. Excellent. I can see this image has really a lot of blues in it. I will come and grab my color theme tool. So when I come to my eyedropper, the color theme tool, I click, and I'm going to add this to my swatches. Wonderful. Okay. Now, actually, I'm gonna borrow some of the elements from page 1. So I'm going to click onto this. I'm going to edit copy. Just kind of makes life a little bit easier. Edit copy, and I'm going to come to page 2, and I'm going to choose edit paste. I'm going to change it from the Painted Desert to White Sands. Again, working with capital letters. I'm going to actually type here White Sands National Park, and I can see it doesn't fit. So I want to select all of my font and go a little bit smaller. White Sands National Park. I'm down to 50, and I'm going to change this to 50. Again, I could type it right in. I'm just going a little bit slower. National, and I did I add park? Let's say park. Looks like I still do have overset text. You can do a double click. National Park. Okay, I want to paste this in. It's moving into a different text box. National Park. There we go. Now I can absolutely come on in and change this color if I'd like to. Maybe I want to choose one of the colors that is from the design, and I can play around with what it is that I'm doing. This absolutely gets lost. Let me try a different effects. I could do an inner shadow. I could play around with this a little bit. There's a lot of other options in this as well. And I could also choose a outer glow. And maybe I'll turn off the drop shadow. Okay, I like this. It looks as if it's cutting into White Sands National Park. And now for this one, I'm going to change this to Visit New Mexico. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually copy. I'm actually going to copy and paste this. Edit, copy, edit, paste. And I'm going to put this down below. Actually, no, I'll put it up next to it. Again, sometimes you put something down and then you see what it looks like and you choose what you want to do with it. So this one will say, Visit New Mexico. Now, when I take a closer look at this, I get the feeling that the contrast is not really strong enough. So what I might do is play around with what's behind here. So when I copied and pasted these, they had the interactive piece already added to it. So if I want to remove it, I just click on to the box and I come to my animation window and I come to the top and I choose none. Again, I'll come to this one. I come to the top, I choose none. And I actually am going to put a color behind this and lower the opacity of it. So I'm going to one more time come and grab my my shape tool, my rectangle tool. I'm going to size it. As I've said throughout this video, it's very easy by accident to add a stroke. So always make sure that you don't have a stroke turned on. And I'm going to do, and I just added that to the stroke. I want to actually add it to the fill. This is the fill here. I can come into my colors that I've pulled and I'm going to lower the opacity of this. And I'm going to actually send this image backwards. So again, I come to Object, Arrange, Send Backward one more time. And I've gone over this a couple times throughout this video. Send backward. Object, arrange, send backward. There we have it. Excellent. Maybe I want to lower the opacity just a little bit more. Now, what you're going to find as you're working is that it's almost as soon as you put something down, you might have to change something else, right? So one thing works and then it doesn't work. And the contrast here still might not work 100% the way that I want it to. So I would actually play around with this a little bit more. Now the next thing that I want to do is add the animation, which is very, very easy to do. And since these are all related to one another, I am going to add the animation in a very similar way. I'm going to begin with the image, which is my background. Again, I have my animation window open and I am going to choose Fade In. Then I'm going to come up to this box right here. I am going to choose for that box to fade in. I'm going to go to White Sands. I'm going to click onto White Sands. Looks like, okay, good. I'm going to choose for this as a fade in. I'm going to go Visit New Mexico and I'm going to choose this as a fade in. I'm going to preview what it is that I've created. And here we have it. Excellent. Okay, some of the effects are not coming through when we when we're doing this, so that's something to keep in mind. When you're publishing for the web, what you'll find is not all of the interactivity will travel with it. So you want to always double check it and preview it, maybe take things out. When you export this, what you'll do is you'll come on up to your menu bar, you'll choose File, you'll say Save As. Actually, let's choose Export. And you're going to choose it, you're going to export it as an EPUB fixed layout. And I'm going to choose Postcards. I'm going to hit Save. And I already have one, so I will do Postcards 2. Let's see. Hopefully I don't have a Postcards 2. You'll see I'll have some of these other options. I'm just going to hit OK. I'm going to go for the default. And here we have it. Again, and I said this earlier, what I'm finding here is that the effects are not working when I move to the interactivity piece. So keep that in mind as you're designing. We come to page 2. Excellent. So I'd rework it, look at it, rework it as need be. And there we have it. In this video, we just went over how we would go about laying out a series of postcards, really focusing on the idea of visual continuity. So if we're working on a design project and we have multiples, how can we know that they're all related? We looked at how we can go about laying this out for print, and then moving from print to designing and creating a layout that will be viewed on a device and that has a little bit of interactivity to it. Thanks so much.